Time with Schleggy, everybody. A few months ago, I was telling one of my coworkers, it was right after the NFL schedule dropped, and we were talking, and I said, we should probably go to the Bears-Commanders game. We really should. You're a Commanders fan, I'm a Bears fan. We go do this. And we probably should, especially the chance to see Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels face off, Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels in person. Like, we should do this. Now, logically, understandably, that coworker probably thought and said, I don't want to hang out with Jeff. Good call! He said, I don't want to be stuck in a car with him for hours. I don't want to have to go to a game with him and then drive back with him. Yeah. But now we were talking about it the other day, and maybe we kind of wish we would have bought the tickets a few months ago when they were much, much cheaper. Yeah, it feels like a bit of a bag fumble. However, I can say that then as I think about it, one, the Commanders Stadium is a shithole. So it's not like you're missing much by not going. Two, it's the perks and benefits of a 75-inch screen. I can go, since this is a late afternoon game, thank God it got flexed. Although I thought it should have been flexed to maybe Sunday night. I could do stuff during the day, do some homework, and go play 18 holes. Like, yeah. I'm glad I'm not going now. But I got to stop coming up with excuses to not go see Bears football in person. Anyways, let's talk about this. All of a sudden looks a hell of a lot more exciting matchup between the Bears and Commanders late Sunday afternoon than it might have looked before the start of the season. Outside of, hey, it's the top two picks in the draft, quarterbacks Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels facing off. Still some reason to be excited, but when you look at the team's recent performance this year, even more reason to be that way. The Bears come into this one at 4-2 off a bye after beating the Jags 35-16 in London. And what's funny is they won 3 straight games before the bye, so they started to get some momentum, started to get a little hot. And it's worth noting that Matt Eberflus is 2-0 in games after the bye week. I guess it makes sense for him because he's half the coach of many others, so give him 2 weeks and he's good. Only give him a week, he's fucked. But certainly some reasons for confidence for the Bears. Caleb's completing about 65% of his passes, over 1,300 passing yards through 6 games, 9 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. And even when he's getting hit, he's getting up. He's taking all the snaps. He's showing he could be the guy. And meanwhile, the defense is in top 5 of NFL in points allowed per game and yards allowed per game. So a good spot. Certainly a defense that you look to at times to help lift up a young quarterback and that offense. The reality is for the Bears at 4-2, this isn't like an absolute must win or, oh my God, if they lose this one, the season's over. This is a really pivotal game though. You don't want to let down here. You won 3 straight before your bye. The Commanders may or may not be starting Jayden Daniels on Sunday afternoon. You're in the bottom of the NFC North, even at 4-2. Next 2 games against the Cardinals and the Patriots. You would really love to win this one because if you can then handle your business against those other 2 teams, all of a sudden you go into that Week 11 matchup against the Packers at 7-2. Or maybe even 6-3, right? If you fuck up against the Cardinals or the Patriots. But that schedule the last 7-8 weeks of the season gets a lot tougher for the Bears, so they got to make hay now. So this is a really pivotal game. It's not an absolute must-win, but you could sure feel how important this one is right now. Meanwhile, for the Commanders, I think it's certainly important game for them too, right? Nice surprising start to the season for them under first-year head coach Dan Quinn. 5-2, they pounded the Panthers last week. Marcus Mariota came in for an injured Jayden Daniels and played pretty nicely. Here are the freaking Commanders of all teams, sitting in first place in the NFC East. Who'd have thought that through 7 games, right? Hats off to these guys. They're playing some pretty solid football. The offense is leading the league in points scored per game, and they're 4th in total yards per game. Their defense is middle of the pack. They can be had, but they do generate some pressure on opposing quarterbacks. It's kind of a modern thing of you want the offense to be elite and the defense to be at least adequate. And the Commanders through 7 games kind of have that formula. But a big one for them. If the Commanders can beat the Bears here, They win a game at home. They now go to 6-2. You're almost halfway through the season. You've got 6 wins. That's setting you up really nicely to win like 10, 11, 12 games and ensure either the division crown or at a minimum a wild card spot on the NFC side. So lots of subplots, lots of storylines, lots of intrigue here. The betting odds for this one at the time of this recording on Friday night, the Bears are favored by 3 and the over-under is 43, which feels reasonable, especially if there's some uncertainty about whether Jayden Daniels is going to start or not. Although I will say, the guy that I compared Jayden Daniels in my scouting report to, if I recall correctly, was Marcus Mariota, who would be the guy that would step in and start, and he played pretty well last week. It's not like you'd be going to an undrafted rookie or an unproven guy. You would go to a guy who just hasn't been very good in the NFL, but has plenty of NFL experience and maybe in a short spurt could lead you to a victory or two. In terms of injury reports, big news again for the Bears in the second. One of the real strengths of their team. You've got Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker are both out. Looks like Tyreek Stevenson will play, so that's great. But Gordon, Brisker out, not so good. Meanwhile, for the Commanders, the big story is whether Jayden Daniels will play or he'll sit. Early reports in the week where he was week to week, talking to a bunch of Commanders fans around here in Richmond. They seem to believe that Daniels wasn't going to play this week, and all of a sudden it seems like it could happen. It could just be that the Commanders have no intention of playing Jayden this week, and they're just trolling the Bears up until the last minute. Who knows? But if he's out, it's a big story. If he plays, it might still be a big story because how are they going to protect him with his ribs, and how is he going to avoid those types of big hits? Brandon Coleman's out, their offensive tackle, and then Jonathan Allen's out as well, so a couple of key cogs missing in the trenches. In terms of keys to victory for both teams here, starting with the Bears, I'm going a little different this time and say get Rome Odunze 7+ targets. Odunze's only had 2 games with that many targets so far this year. I'd really like to see him and Caleb establish a rapport early. Attack down the field with him. Take some shots. The secondary of the Commanders can be had. You spent a top 10 pick on Rome. It's time to use him like you spent a top 10 pick on him. You're probably going to say this every single game the rest of the season, but protecting Caleb Williams is going to be a big key, especially up the middle. And then for the defensive side of the ball, I don't want to put this all on one player, but at the end of the day, he's your highest paid player on that side of the ball. He's coming into this one. It should be a revenge game. You need Montez Sweat to take over on Sunday afternoon. He needs to be more than a guy that maybe just makes one like close play or one flash or splash play in a game. You need him to be a constant presence. You need him to be disruptive. You need him to get in there and wreck shit in the pocket. That's what they need. They need this to be really a 2+ sack game for Montez Sweat. Help make up for some of the losses in the secondary with Gordon and Brisker being out. In terms of the Commanders, they've got to lean heavily on the running game. Make the Bears prove that they can stop it. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, whether it's Jayden Daniels, Marcus Mariota. Don't be afraid with the offense that you currently have to run it quite a bit. And like I said, make the Bears prove that they can be better than mediocre against the run. 10+ targets for Terry McLaurin. I know you don't want to just laser focus solely and exclusively on him, but he's a fucking stud. It's kind of like I say with the Bears with DJ Moore, throw the ball to him, good things happen. For the Commanders, throw the ball to Terry McLaurin, good things happen. So find a way by hook or by crook to get him involved in the passing game. Get him away from Jalen Johnson, put him in the slot, shit, I don't care, throw him screen passes in the backfield, whatever you got to do, right? Get McLaurin involved early, get him involved often. And then defensively, get pressure up the middle on Caleb Williams. If you can do that while maintaining your contain on the outside, it could be a bad day in the pocket for him. That's the key. Bring pressure up the middle, contain on the outside. Yeah, Caleb's going to burn you every once in a while because of his great improv ability, but he's not going to be able to do it every time. So go get after him. As I look at this matchup, it's a little tough because the way I'm understanding it, it's uncertain who's going to start, although it still feels like it might be Mariota that starts on Sunday. This is a really big matchup for both teams, a big test for both teams. They're kind of in a spot where maybe they couldn't have envisioned, and a win here goes a long way to helping them get to the playoffs this year. The Bears have had 2 weeks to prepare, though. Matt Eberflus, for some reason, is 2-0 coming off the bye week, probably because he's had 2 weeks to prepare, right? He can compensate for being Matt Eberflus by having 2 weeks to prepare. And even if Jayden Daniels plays, he might be limited or protecting his ribs. I really do hope he plays. I hope he's healthy enough to play because we want to see Caleb and we want to see Jaden go head-to-head. But on that note, I'm going to go total homer pick here, stick to the spread. I'm going to take the Bears 23 and the Commanders 20. Let's find out what happens Sunday afternoon. Bear down, bitches!